Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Final preparations in the Bahamas with the general election just hours away. That's our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Tuesday, May 9. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Nicole Best. Good evening. With less than 24 hours to go before Bahamians vote for a new government, the man who was just a few days ago tasked with overseeing the process says he's working to ensure there is no repeat of the fiasco that occurred during advanced polls last week. Last Wednesday, chaos and long waits marked the early voting. An acting permanent secretary, that's the acting Parliamentary Commissioner Charles Albury said on Monday that he's working with the man he replaced, Sherlyn Hall, to avoid a recurrence. About 108,000 people are registered to vote on Wednesday. The Progressive Liberal Party, which won the last general election in 2012, will be challenged by the Free National Movement and the Democratic National Alliance. But as we hear in this report from Janine Noel Ferguson of ZNS Network News, the new boss of the Parliamentary Registration Department is seeking to ensure all goes well in that process.
Charles Albury was recently appointed acting parliamentary commissioner, succeeding Sherlyn Hall, whose contract expired last week. Hall did not request a contract extension. He became the center of controversy on advanced poll day on May 3rd. Not only did the polls open after the 8 o'clock hour, but thousands flocked to one location to participate, standing in line for hours. A decision that Hall reported was not made by him, but by Permanent Secretary Carl Smith. Now, while the Prime Minister has ordered an investigation into the matter, Albury will now oversee the election process. He shared with ZNS News that Hall will assist in ensuring there is a smooth transition.
Well, I have been appointed acting parliamentary commissioner. My understanding is that Mr. Hall's contract would have ended, and the government needed to appoint someone to complete this process. So I expect I will sit down with Mr. Hall during the course of the week to deal with the transition.
Moving forward, Albury says he's now tasked with ensuring that what took place on May 3rd is not repeated and that the election process runs as smooth as possible, not only here in New Providence, but throughout the country. Albury said he and his team spent the weekend ensuring that all mechanisms were in place.
Certain things that we have to do to ensure that ballots and the equipment required for the conduct of elections throughout New Providence or the Bahamas. What we did this past weekend was to complete that process for all of the family islands. In addition to that, we've asked all of the returning officers in New Providence to come back in to recheck the registers against the counterfoils to give them that level of confidence that all is in order with the register. And that process is supposed to be completed by about midday today.
Noting challenges that were experienced with the register on advanced poll day, Hall said that while the register has already been certified with more than 180,000 voters, a review will take place shortly before Wednesday to shore up that process.
Yes, anyone who was on the advanced poll register who did not vote will still be allowed to vote come Wednesday. One of the issues, to my understanding, that happened on last week Wednesday was the late arrival of the ballot boxes, which compounded the situation. We don't expect that to happen this time. And that is why we can say with confidence that the Family Islands have all the material they need. And during the course of today and tomorrow, we will complete that exercise for New Providence.
Now, Aubrey also refuted claims of missing ballots in Grand Bahama.
Meantime, Prime Minister Perry Christie is appealing for peace during the polls, and he called on religious leaders to seek divine intervention to ensure all is calm on Wednesday.
Offer prayers in our country for people to have calm heads and to be wise and to understand that our democracy enables us to differ strongly, but at the end of the process, we are all God's children in this one major, wonderful country. And that if our country is going to work, we're going to have to make it work together.
Acting Governor of the Barbados Central Bank, Cleviston Haynes, said even before the country considers going to the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, for any assistance, there is need for a commitment to fiscal discipline. Last week, Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Timothy Antwine, after a meeting with Haynes, suggested that countries should seek the IMF assistance to tackle its fiscal problems. But Haynes told the media on Tuesday that the IMF is only one option and the country would do itself a disservice if it approaches that financial institution without a full appreciation for what that action involves.
Going to the fund requires even greater discipline than we have been talking about previously. And we need to demonstrate that discipline ourselves. That is why it's, in my view, whether or not we go to the IMF, there is a need for a strong fiscal adjustment. And what going to the IMF, what the adjustment will do in the first instance is to build a track record.
The governor said another option would be to develop a homegrown fiscal program, which would also require strong fiscal discipline. But there are concerns about the immediate impact of the implementation of that type of discipline.
Fiscal discipline involves change. And as you know, change is not always easy because perhaps we have got into a comfort zone, and therefore sometimes we are reluctant to get out of that comfort zone. What impact will this have? Because we're speaking here in broad terms, but the average citizen is asking him or herself, what impact is this going to have on me as an individual? And if I say to you, well, I'm going to reduce some benefit that you had before, or I'm going to increase some tax or some fee, or you're going to lose your job, whatever proposal I bring, you will say, but that is going to impact me. And therefore, from that perspective, the individual will be concerned. What we have to look at, however, is that without adjustments, then everything can ravel out of order. And that is what one has to address.
Governor Haynes says the underlying message is that there is a need to address the fiscal challenges in order to narrow the deficit, which now stands at $67 million. Meanwhile, the Barbados Central Bank is projecting economic growth of 1.5 to 2% for 2017 after registering a 2% growth in the first quarter. The quarterly report issued by the bank on Tuesday said the moderate growth in the economy was primarily driven by activities in the tourism sector. And it said the delay in the start of a number of investment projects was the reason growth was marginal. At the end of March, international reserves stood at $705 million, which is an increase of just over $24 million from December last year. There was an increase in the fiscal deficit from $59.3 million in the first quarter of 2016 to $67 million for the same period this year. However, it is projected that for 2017-2018 fiscal year, the deficit will be brought down to 4.4% of gross domestic product. There are also projections for the stabilization of the international reserves, but the bank says this is dependent on the sale of government assets, an increase in public sector project-related inflows, and continued strengthening of the tourism sector. Coming up in Caribbean Newsline, Caribbean Airlines pilots accused of using the carrier as an air Uber. That and more after the break. Stay with us. Chatting CARICOM, a 4-part series on the status of the regional integration process. Your chance to get answers.
We as a small island, how do we factor into that bigger picture?
Why is the process taking so long?
While there is liberty to move among the islands, you still have some level of restriction.
Chatting CARICOM also gives you updates on recent CARICOM projects.
We're seeking more and more to engage all our partners in moving forward for the development of our region.
We have come a very long way since we started.
Join the Caribbean community and Caribvision for Chatting CARICOM, a community for all. Coming soon.
Ready. It's another episode. When we out on the road, this is what we love to celebrate, to celebrate. This is not Hollywood. No, we don't come out the road. Drink, drink, drink. King Baba and the guitar. Every fact on a boy keep on calling me wrong name. But that's okay, cause that's my babe.
Caribbean Airlines pilots are being accused of using the Trinidad and Tobago's state-owned carrier as an air Uber. The criticism came after a joint select committee of Parliament discovered that one pilot made 100 jump seat trips for personal use in 1 year. The committee's chairman, David Small, described the situation as troubling and says it amounts to an abuse of privilege. CNC3's Ria Rambali reports.
Working for an airline may have its perks. For example, CAL employees are entitled to 20 free tickets per year, having to pay only taxes. But at a joint select committee into Caribbean Airlines, members came across data that Chairman David Small describes as troubling.
A member of the team in 1 year made 100 individual cockpit jump seat flights.
The GSC also found that another CAL employee made 30 jump seat flights between January and April alone.
There's a suggestion here that the system has been abused because it's just too loose.
Cockpit jump seats are usually reserved for pilots and off-duty crew members traveling in a personal capacity, but noting that those using the jump seats are also entitled to 20 free tickets, the GSC chairman made it clear to CAL executives that the information needed to be addressed.
But it's almost someone is using Caribbean Airlines as their own personal air Uber. It can't be.
According to GSC Chairman Small, it smacks of an abuse of privilege and CAL should implement controls. CAL's HR manager Hyacinth Guy suggests that it could be foreign pilots using the jump seat to go from work to home. But Chairman Shamir Mohammed said it's an area that needs to be looked at.
Chair, I share your same view and the same concerns of the committee.
The airline was also asked to review its retirement policy after the GSC found CAL employs 74 persons over the age of 60, of which 19 are pilots.
In Miami, you have a cargo coordinator who is 78 years old.
CAL said in jurisdictions where there is no retirement age, they cannot force any employee to leave once they are healthy and fit. But Chairman Small noted that this country's retirement age is 60 and there are pilots being paid retirement pension while retained on contract.
They are young, bright, qualified pilots who are looking for jobs and they can't get it at CAL.
Still in Trinidad and Tobago, the son of Muslim leader Yassin Abubakar has won a false imprisonment lawsuit against the government. High Court Judge Carol Gobin ruled in favor of Fuad Abubakar and his wife Christy Ramnarine, who were arrested by police but then released without charge more than a year ago. The two of them were on their way home on February 24, 2016, when police stopped them and ordered them out of their pickup on suspicion that the vehicle was stolen. They were both detained. Ramnarine was released before her husband, who spent several more hours in custody before police accepted that the vehicle was indeed his. They took legal action, and on Monday, Justice Gobin dismissed the state's defense, saying that the police failed to provide evidence to substantiate their claim that there was another vehicle with the same registration number as Barker's vehicle. Compensation for the couple will be calculated by a High Court master later this month. Their attorney, Omar Lala, said police involved in the matter had failed to abide by the ethical standard demanded by their profession.
This was really a case to demonstrate that the police ought to operate by a certain code of conduct in the way in which they treat with people, especially when there's information that's sketchy or not really convincing to act in the aggressive and hostile way in which they acted in this case.
Abubakar, leader of the New National Vision political party, welcomed the judgment, saying he wanted it to be a lesson to others in similar situations.
This judgment really is for all the people who go through this type of harassment. I'm not the only one. I know countless people who have had horror stories with the police, and I would like to appeal to them to continue to take legal action.
Over in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a former police officer, a repeat murder accused, and an ex-cop's son have each been charged with 2 counts of murder related to the death of a police constable and his brother. The men appeared in court on Monday and were not required to plead to the indictable charges. CMC's Kenton Chance has the details of that story.
2 young men get cut down like this. It's just so painful.
Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves on Tuesday described as painful and senseless last Thursday's murder of a police officer and his younger brother. Police Constable Danroy Cozier, 26, of Mesopotamia, an interior community in central St. Vincent, and his 19-year-old brother, Nicholas Cozier, who lived in Richmond Hill on the northern periphery of Kingstown, were found dead at Sion Hill Bay, east of the capital. They both had multiple gunshot wounds, and information suggests that they were killed elsewhere and their bodies dumped on the beach. On Monday, 29-year-old Shemel Dunbar, a man who has already beaten 2 murder charges, along with former police officer Richard Francis, 32, and Kendine Douglas, who is around 30 years old, were charged with the murders. The trio was also charged with 1 count of conspiracy to murder the older Cozier. At a press conference on Tuesday, Gonsalves noted the ages of the victims.
These are 2 young men. You know, just cut down in the spring of their life.
The accused men were not required to plead to the indictable charges and were remanded in custody until November 27, 2017 for the commencement of a preliminary inquiry. In 2015, Dunbar was charged with 1 count of murder and was also charged with 1 count of murder in 2016, but was freed at the commencement of the preliminary inquiries after the prosecution concluded that the Crown did not have enough evidence to sustain the charges. National security sources have at times intimated to the media their frustration with persons being acquitted of serious crimes because witnesses are not willing to testify for fear of reprisal. But Dr. Gonsalves, who is also Minister of National Security, said on Tuesday that protection is offered and had this to say to witnesses.
Tell the DPP, and you can tell the senior officer in the police force. If they are investigating officer, you feel at ease with them, you can tell them.
The murders last week bring the homicide count in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for 2017 to 9 compared to 40 for all of 2016. Kenton Chance, CMC News, Kingstown, St. Vincent.
And ahead in Newsline Sport, West Indies prepare for the final test showdown against Pakistan. Stay with us. Sport is next.
Dominica, a true fantasy island. Whether you're in search of extreme adventure or a family vacation, or a relaxing getaway. Dominica is fun for everyone. And a place where you can totally disconnect and enjoy paradise. Discover Dominica, the nature island.
Ready. It's another episode. When we out on the road, this is what we love to celebrate, to celebrate. This is not Hollywood. No, we don't come out the road. Drink, drink, drink. King Baba and Nikita. Every fact that I go, you keep on calling me wrong name. But that's okay, cause that's my babe. I don't understand how wearing a name tag on me. Don't know what to say, he's still calling me wrong name. Don't get vexed with me. Don't say that.
Don't worry. I'll help.
In average, your kids grow 2 centimeters and gain 1.5 pounds every 120 days. But more than 50% leave food that helps them to grow. Pediasure is the only nutritional supplement with 25 essential vitamins and minerals clinically proven that gives them a complete and balanced nutrition to help kids grow. What are you waiting for? Give them Pediasure today to support their healthy growth.
And we begin our Tuesday sports with a focus on the final showdown between the West Indies and Pakistan in the Test series at Windsor Park in Dominica on Wednesday. The West Indies squared the 3-match series following their dramatic victory at the Kensington Oval last week. But both teams appear to be putting aside the result of that second test to focus on the match that will decide who wins the series. Windies captain Jason Holder is hoping his men won't be complacent.
I think for me, I just take it as another cricket game. What's happened in Barbados is gone already. It's important we put that behind us. Not forget what the good things we've done there. We obviously need to improve on a few areas. Fielding is one, especially taking our chances. And I think once we forget that as quickly as possible and move on to this game, it's better for us.
Holder says there is no pressure for the side going into the match.
Pressure, we're in a situation where we've played some good cricket in this series so far. We haven't been perfect, so we're striving to play a perfect cricket game. So once we strive to do that, and we probably get 99% of that, going right now, I think we're on the better side at the end of this game.
Meanwhile, Pakistan's captain Misbah-ul-Haq is dismissing any notion that the West Indies have the psychological edge over his squad. He's confident his men will bounce back in the final test. Misbah says they will remain focused on their game and they intend to treat it like any other test match.
I think that is something which just gives us additional motivation. So I hope so that's the case with the team also. Looking forward to be a normal game and focus on our jobs, especially as a player. That's more important, especially as a batsman. I think contributions of Yunus and me would be very important in this game. So just focusing on that. Sometimes emotions can come into these sort of occasions, but I think we'll just try our best to focus on our job.
Meanwhile, West Indies assistant head coach Toby Radford believes the Caribbean side's batsmen are showing signs of improvement. In the second test in Barbados, Roston Chase hit his second test century, while Shea Hope and captain Jason Holder struck high-quality half-centuries. Radford said the Windies' performance at the Kensington Oval was enough to suggest that the unit was on the mend, especially after the disappointing outing in the opening test.
I've been very pleased with the batter. I think when you look at the win last week in Barbados, there were lots of contributors. Obviously, Roston Chase in the first innings, wonderful century. Jason Holder played very well. And then the second innings, Shea Hope, I thought, was a fantastic knock to help us get the lead that we got to set up the win. So I felt there were lots of contributors with the batting. There's one or two who probably like a little bit more form, and that's the whole purpose of today's net session and tomorrow, to give them confidence and tweak one or two things to hope that they can get some scores as well.
Toby also heaped praises on Captain Jason Holder for his all-round performances.
He's a fantastic, first of all, he's a fantastic individual. He's a fine leader and a top quality all-rounder, and he's proving to be more and more consistent as his career is developing. So, he's getting good scores for us. His bowling is very, very economical, and he's also picking up wickets. And as I say, he's a good leader of a good young side at the moment. So I can't speak highly enough of him.
Switching to football, Under Fire Caribbean Football Union President Gordon Derrick says he has been buoyed by support from local clubs as he prepares to defend himself against corruption charges brought by football's world governing body FIFA. Derrick said on a sports radio program that he was blown away by the number of clubs backing him. He said more than half the football clubs called him, pledging their support. The CFU boss faces a ban of up to 4 years and a fine of $15,000 for alleged conflicts of interest, offering and accepting gifts and other benefits, mismanagement of funds, abuse of position, and disloyalty. FIFA announced recently that its ethics committee had opened a formal case against Derrick following an investigation conducted by Dr. Cornel Borwell, chairman of the investigatory chamber of the ethics committee. In a report submitted to the adjudicatory chamber of FIFA's ethics committee, Dr. Borwell recommended a ban on Derrick of no less than 4 years from any kind of football-related activity, administrative, sports or otherwise, along with a fine. Though FIFA did not outline the specifics of the charges, it is understood that among the contentious matters is the mortgaging of land housing the FIFA Gold project, a move Derrick said was a decision of the entire Antigua and Barbuda Football Association. Staying with football, former TNT Soca Warriors captain and Manchester United star Dwight York is hailing his former teammates' commitment to the development of the sport in Trinidad and Tobago. The overseas-based Tobago-born footballer, who was in TNT supporting an elite program, says he's happy to know that former members of the 2006 World Cup squad are giving back to TNT. Kent Fuentes of C-Sport tells us more.
York, like many of his recently retired peers, have also pursued coaching badges with the goal of keeping involved and giving back to the sport that has made him and others household names around the world. Several of them have even gone to coach at the national level, with Russell Latipi, once a former national senior team coach, now in charge of the national under-15s, while Dennis Lawrence is now in charge of the senior team. York says this is something he is happy to see.
And we've seen, obviously, Russell Latipi, a very close friend of mine who's passionate and want to get into coaching. He's doing a great job at the youth level at the moment. I think they're actually in the Cayman Islands at the moment, doing a great job. And I know how passionate he is and want to ultimately manage Trinidad and Tobago maybe one more time again. Dennis Lawrence, you've seen him make the transition, the new manager of Trinidad and Tobago. I played it alongside Dennis. He's got a great understanding of the game. And hopefully we'll try and transfer that to his managerial career. And
York believes.
And that's the sport. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Chatting CARICOM, a 4-part series on the status of the regional integration process. Your chance to get answers.
We as a small island, how do we factor into that bigger picture?
Why is the process taking so long?
While there is liberty to move among the islands, you still have some level of restriction.
Chatting CARICOM also gives you updates on recent CARICOM projects.
We're seeking more and more to engage all our partners in moving forward for the development of our region.
We have come a very long way since it started.
Join the Caribbean community and CaribVision for Chatting CARICOM, a community for all. Coming soon. Again, the major developments of this day, final preparations in the Bahamas with the general elections just hours away. And in sport, West Indies prepare for the final test showdown against Pakistan. That's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, log on to CarnaNews.com. We'll be back here again tomorrow. But from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and do have yourselves a good night.